don't lie. They scream what they know, rust don't forget, the bones don't let go. Shadows stretch long, the secrets get song, and the creek keeps the whispers you thought were your own. Are you really digging for peace, or is that just a lie you tell to help you sleep? Sure that
Welcome to the Wrecking Yard. I'm Jerry Wayne Longmire. Y'all, presumably still y'all. All are welcome here in the Church of Internal Combustion. We just ask that you show up with an open heart. Ooh, that's good coffee. How are we doing, folks? It is Sunday morning. I say it's like 10 o'clock. That's kind of like on the back end of the morning. Sunday morning. That thermometer says it is nearly 50 degrees in here. That thermometer is a notorious lie because it feels like 30 in here. I am freezing my balls off. Excuse me for that. I do got my little heater here. Yeah. Oh God, that feels good. Oh yeah, that's the stuff. All right, blow that hot air. Hot air right up my chest. Feels good. I am in just a glorious mood. I don't have a reason for that, other than I'm just kind of feeling good. I told you I get a little twisted up that period of time between when my mom died and when we buried her. Seems like every year it jacks with me a little bit. And coming out of it like a butterfly out of a cocoon, a big ass damn butterfly, but a butterfly out of a cocoon nonetheless. My chrysalis is complete. I'm ready to fly. It's a lot of sad shit this time of year. I don't like cold time of the year. I lost a lot of people. A lot of my people have died between January and February. Both my maternal and my paternal grandfather, Papa Clark and Papa Longmire, both died. I'm probably gonna get this wrong, but I think it's January 19th or January 18th. They both died on January 18th, about 5-6 years apart. It's a lot of people. Lost a lot of friends around this time of year. We lost my wife's father on February 2nd, I believe. And then his brother, Uncle Jerry, Great Jerry, lost him, I think the exact same date a year later, or pretty close to. It's just a rough time of year. I hope that if I pass before Rachel, that it happens at another time of the year. One, I don't want to die when it's cold. I hate being cold. And I already think you're probably going to be cold when you die because the blood and physiology and whatnot. Seems like a cold thing to do is dying. So I've always sort of hoped that when the time comes for me, the sun is on my face and I'm warm. I think that'll make it a less scary. But also, if it's another time of year, that would be great too. Because my wife's already got a lot of bullshit this time of year piling on her. So if I could not pile on, that would be cool. Not anytime soon, Lord. Not anytime soon. I'm just saying when the time comes, many years from now. This I don't know. If I'm still in Texas, let's shoot for June, so let's shoot for July. I get a last birthday in, and then I get to skip August. That'd be pretty cool. Ooh, heavens to Betsy's. I'm in a mood. I can't possibly begin to explain it. I am excited about Duwali Bottoms Day. Got a humdinger of episode. We got a humdinger of a Wrecking Yard episode. going to. I kind of broke it up in two things because I got two kind of things I want to talk to you about today. And one of them we're going to talk about a little later on is I was a little late to the party on discovering Hoyt Axton. And I've been down a rabbit hole this week learning about Hoyt Axton. If you're not a fan yet, you're going to be a fan by the time I get done talking about this cat, because he is something else. Was something. And I like the unsung heroes, you know. I like an unsung hero. And I've not got back in the gym yet. That was supposed to happen this past week. I didn't do it. And I'm promising myself I'm going tomorrow. I'm gonna be honest, if it's cold tomorrow, I ain't going. But we got some warm weather coming back. I'm sure that'll kick me into gear like it always does. This is a little bit of the cold part of the year. I don't want to do nothing. You know what I want to do? I want to wrap up my electric blanket and play Red Dead Redemption. That's what I want to do. I want to go outside. I want to do things. Hell, I can't go nowhere. I sold my car. I did. I sold the Maserati, which is a little curious to me. So a lot of you know I've talked about it. So I was just sell the car because I was buying this pickup from my buddy David. Buddy David had this Avalanche he was going to sell me, and I was hyped about that. I was going to buy that, sell my car. Didn't need to do it all at one time. I was trying to make a decision whether I wanted to keep that little Mazda or not, but I really don't. I don't need the extra insurance. I don't need the extra nothing. I don't need the extra shit in my driveway, to be honest with you. I got enough things going on around here. I don't need anything taking up extra space. So, but David has a lot of cars and trucks. So he was swapping some titles around, moving some shit around, trying to decide what he was going to drive next. And he told me he needed about a month because he was thinking about buying a new pickup, and he was using the Avalanches as daily. So yeah, that's no problem. I haven't really done a lot. I listed the Mazda back in December, but I haven't really done much to sell it. I just kind of listed it. I bought some parts for it and stuff, and I was going to do a bunch of work on it and try to get top dollar for it, that kind of thing. But then I just decided, is all that extra work worth, extra $800, and still having to argue with somebody about it to sell it. And it being a standard transmission, so this is the craziest thing. It being a 6-speed is why I bought it. But I realize that I am in the minority. Because it being a 6-speed, I have had more people hit me up and get excited about buying that car and realize it's a standard and back out. Oh, I was going to buy it for my kid. I don't want to try to teach him how to drive standard. Oh, I was going to buy it for this. It was so much of that. So I decided not to do all that extra work. And then a guy hit me up. I had it listed at a price that I felt pretty good about. And guy hit me up. A gentleman, first of all, on Facebook Marketplace. That's hard to find. So many trolls on there. I like selling cars on there because you can usually sell them quick. But a lot of trolls. You're going to deal with a lot of people jacking with you and not getting anywhere. And you got to pay attention to every one of them if they seem half-ass serious, just because that's going to be your sale. It's the nature of sales. It's a lot of engagement for very little return. Feels like being a stand-up comic. So, listed car for sale. Didn't think much about it. Guy hits me up. We go back and forth about it for a few days, talking to me. He's asked me some questions. I take him some extra photos, things like that. And he sounds actually serious. He says, man, I want to come look at it Friday. I said, cool. He said, I'm coming about an hour and a half away. So I told my wife, I was like, man, he's coming an hour and a half away. There's a pretty good possibility he's coming with the intent to buy that car. Like he's already decided it's something he wanted, that kind of thing. It's different now. And this is going to sound braggadocious, and I don't mean it to be at all. I'm just trying to really discuss the way things have changed for me, for y'all. I used to sell cars, buy and sell vehicles all the time. I did a lot, even when in the early days of my content creation. That's kind of how I was making a buck. Okay. When I stop doing some of the contracting, but I still need to make some money every once in a while, I go buy a little shitbox car off Facebook Marketplace, do a little bit of work on it, turn around, sell it, make a little bit of money on it. And that was kind of my thing. But now, the last 2 or 3 times I've gone to sell something off Facebook Market, because I still sell stuff on there. You know, I got some old kilns and old equipment. I got a drywall lift over there I'm trying to sell, all kind of stuff, you know. I'm always, it's in my blood. It's that Papa Clark, it's that wrecking yard in me. It's that dog in me. I still like to sell and mess with junk, you know. So, last 2 or 3 times I've gone to sell something, people I go to meet know who I am. They watch the podcast, or they follow me on Facebook, or they follow me on TikTok, and so that's a little weird. That throws it off. It throws the dynamic of this. It throws everything off, you know. And this guy and his father were no exception. Really nice people, but knew me from social media, which kind of threw me off my game a little bit, because I like thinking I'm a pretty decent negotiator, you know. But when somebody has extra info about you, that kind of throws the balance off. Yeah, it's better when 2 strangers meet and negotiate. So that's kind of been a weird, it's been a weird addition to the process. But they were really lovely people. Went and test drove the Mazda. Guy was happy with it. And he was you know what I liked? He was a young dude, but he was a young man that was a good negotiator. He was an honest, open negotiator. I like an honest, open negotiation. I like, you make me a good, fair offer, I'll make you a return fair offer, and we'll meet somewhere in the middle. You know, we'll start in places that aren't miles apart and get somewhere close. That shows me a man's serious about making a deal. When somebody lowballs you, I immediately lose interest in selling anything. It almost sets out the exact, like, I go into anti-you mode. I don't want to sell you nothing now. It closes off my body language. It closes off my mind. Guy made me a fair offer right off the bat. So, you know, I'd feel better about this. And then we got somewhere in the middle of that, and I felt pretty good about it. And I sold that Mazda. And not only did I sell it, but I made money on the deal, you know. Fair money. Made fair money on the deal. I bought a car at a good price. I drove it. I utilized it for nearly 2 years to make me money, driving to gigs and stuff. So you have to count that into the value. People do that a lot of times. They'll buy a car, and then you'll hear this, like, somebody will buy a car, they'll hold on to this car for a year or 2, drive it, do whatever, and they'll sell it and be like, oh, I didn't make no money on it, you know, that's basically what I paid for it, or I sold it for a little less than what I paid for it. But they don't account the value of the use of the car, which goes into the equation. I used that car for 2 years, put 27,000 miles on it. That's a value. That's 2 years no car payment, 2 years not having to work on a car, because that little car was pretty gangbusters. You know what I mean? That all goes into the valuation. So if you take a car, you buy a car, do that, and sell it, and still walk away from it feeling like you made money on it, and the numbers lining up with that, then it makes you feel pretty good. That's the way it should go. Even if you don't make money on it numbers-wise, if the value of ownership equates and makes up for that deficit, then you still made money on the car. Me and my buddy David were talking about this the other day. But it's good, man. We had an honest conversation. I presented the known issues with the car, and I had done pretty good in the ad talking about them. So I feel like he walked away feeling like he got a fair deal. I walked away feeling like I got a fair deal. He even gave me a ride back to my house, which is nice. I don't usually meet people here at the house. This is kind of my private sanctuary, you know. I'm a hermit when I'm home. I don't meet people here. So we went to the Big Burger across the freeway and met over there. let him drive. And he was funny. We got in the car, and he says he was going to test drive it. And he says, now a good time to tell you I've never driven a Standard before. I was pretty cool. Like, well, you going to learn today. Let's go. Y'all remember, I did have a Barry Laminack and then got treated like a milkshake from Lubbock to Colorado. So I should probably watch telling people shit like that. Regardless, another chapter in Wrecking Yard history is going on to its next owner. Maserati is gone, and the new chapter begins this week. Because David is finally ready to relinquish the Avalanche. I talked to him. He was ready. That was actually what put me in gear to actually sell it. Was about a week ago. Me and David went and had lunch. Told y'all about that. And he's like, I'm ready to do something on this Avalanche. I said, well, let me get that damn Mazda sold. Mazda sold. Moving forward on the Avalanche. So I'm going over to David's shop. Well, not David's shop. So David builds transmissions for a bunch of shops. He's a builder. And he has all his own little business ventures. But one of the main shops is one of the shops that he kind of started that I worked for him at was on Shepherd at Washington and Houston. And it's moved a little bit. It's on the other side of Washington now. But it's a good little shop. The manager there is a dude named Robert. He's a really good dude. He's a fan of what we do here. And Robert gave me a good deal on the R&R. They're going to take the unit out for me, the transmission out for me. And here's the thing. It's a GMT 800. It's pre-AFM, pre-DOD bullshit. It's 2006, 5.3 liter. It's exactly what I was wanting. Got the 4L65E. It's got 185,000 miles on it. It's never had any transmission work. Which means we're getting in that period, we're getting in that age where that 4L65E is going to go, and we're going to need to rebuild it. And David was like, well, if we rebuild it before it burns up, they always last a little longer if you do that. If you take care of them before they burn something, before they flip out, they last a little longer. And he's like, if you want, I'll teach you how to rebuild it with my tools and stuff, and you can film it for content. And we both agreed that that's going to be funny. So that's what we're going to do this week. So we're going to go there, we're going to take the transmission out, we're going to rebuild the 4L65 in it before I start touring and driving this thing all over the place. Get it going. It's got other little bullshit. I told y'all, brake booster and shit like that needs to be fixed. But I'm excited to have a pickup again. I thought I was done with pickups. I thought I was going to be a car guy. I thought I was going to be car people from here on out. Didn't think I was going to mess. I had this big thing in my head. I don't need a pickup. I don't do pickup work anymore. I don't need a pickup. Man don't need a pickup. I'll not drive a pickup. I was real self-righteous about it. Till I went without a pickup for a couple of years. And now I'm like, man needs a pickup. And my buddy Slade Ham put it to me. I was like, well, I'm just worried about these gigs and the fuel mileage. And he goes, all that fuel mileage really adds up to selling about 3 extra tickets. And that's pretty easy when you only sell 18 tickets. Don't you? But he was right. He had a point. Like that's really all the difference in that fuel mileage makes, even on a long trip. It's not going to be that crazy. So I'm excited. I'll get y'all some pictures next week. We'll talk all about it. It's always weird selling a car for me. I've been thinking about the evolution of vehicles. I've been working on this thing that's like the evolution of man, evolution of masculinity versus the evolution of pickup trucks in the United States. I've been working on this op-ed piece I'm trying to write. Oh, yeah. Selling a car very often is not just selling a car. It's very often really about selling a version of yourself that you don't need to carry anymore. And the version of myself that needed that little Mazda for the way I needed it, we're moving past that now. We're moving past that chapter. So I'm having to sell that little piece of myself And it feels good when you look at it that way, when you go, okay, this is just a chapter I don't need at this point. But in my mind, there's three big ages of the evolution of the American vehicle. And I think the first stage in that is vehicles as tools, vehicle as useful tools. And that's like the 1900s to kind of the late 1940s. I mean, you do start getting into identity and art in the 40s for sure. But primarily in that age, cars were sold like plows, tractors, or hammers. You know, think like Ford Model T energy, transportation, reliability, repairability, utility. That's what vehicles were. Car was an extension of your personality. It was an extension of your work radius. Early cars weren't about who you were. They were about where you could now get to. Freedom wasn't emotional yet. It was practical. You know, back that time, your ancestors, your great grandpa, whoever it was that was buying cars at that time, they didn't buy a car. They didn't go out and buy a 1935 pickup because it was a pretty pickup. They went out and bought it because they needed a pickup for the farm. They needed a way to get to church and haul a hog. You know what I mean? They had a need in this thing. Somebody made this thing that fit this need. And that's the way that all sort of flowed and worked. It wasn't, oh, look at, you know, back then even the cars didn't come in that many colors. And we're going back to that now, which is kind of depressing. But that's the truth of the matter. I always, me and my buddy Adam, that's been helping me edit the book and stuff, and really good friend of mine, very intelligent person. I love having conversations with him. We're discussing, there's a line Papa Clark said to me one time. We were standing up in the Transco Tower and we're looking down Westheimer. And he's like, boy, they come in so many colors now. He's like, you know, when I was a kid, you could just get them in black. And he's like, look at that one. Looks like a great Polly Pop. He was so excited seeing all the colorful cars going up and down Westheimer. Of course, that was the 90s. Cars were still colorful then. But that's the very first stage of automobile evolution is the vehicle as a tool. It's as a useful implement that you purchase to help you achieve tasks. That's what vehicles did. Then, and really it's the late 40s, I would say to the late 1990s. And this enters a new stage. This is cars as personality. Cars as identity, freedom and personality. To me, this is the golden era. Late 40s, you start getting some beautiful art pieces put on four wheels. This is the time period where Detroit figures something out. People don't just want to go places. They want to feel like someone while they're doing it. You know, the late 40s, the 50s, the 60s, this is the era of tail fins and muscle, personal luxury cars. Pickup trucks become masculinity statements towards the end of the 80s. Vans become symbol of rebellion long before kidnappery stuff. Sports cars are a promise that you are this cool, you are this guy that deserves this fast-moving machine that hugs the road. Chevrolet didn't sell horsepower, they sold who you were on a Friday night. You remember that? You remember when cars were like that? When that was a Dodge truck didn't sell payload, it sold competence. I mean, as good as Dodge could. This is the wrecking yard era. This is your car said what you couldn't yet. This is cars as personality, as identity. And there's important nuance to this because most of us couldn't afford the Dream outright. So we bought used versions of it. And they still work because the cars in that time period were overbuilt. So we could buy that used car and we could spend a little time and a little effort making it us, making it suit your identity, making it suit your needs. I think, in my mind, it is the golden age. It's I think probably, I mean, for me, peak automobile design as far as art is the mid 60s. That's the end of it. After that, things start going downhill in my mind. That's just my opinion. The tail fins, the straight lines, that to me is where it's peak. I have different little periods though, you know, like the 1957 Dodge swept side. That is peak. That's the epitome of pickup truck design to me. Single cab, that beautiful swept side bed, gave it a little style, a little panache. Good looking front end. That was a pickup truck that you go pick up a load of materials in, but you still felt pretty good about getting your old lady in it, driving up to church house on Sunday afternoon. To me, that was peak. It's when the cars got very colorful. Two-tone paint schemes and a great many other interesting things. That's the era of cars. It's the ones I love, it's the ones I miss. And they were all so different, you know? There was a period of time where, I know I've said this before, but, you know, even well up into the 90s, the early 90s, you could see a car a mile away and know what kind of car it was. You know, if it was a Ford, Chevrolet, Toyota, you could tell. You know, when I was a teenager driving around, all the cops drove Caprices and Crown Vics. Buddy, I could tell a pair of Caprice headlights from 2 miles away in the dark. I knew if that was a Caprice coming down the highway. I'd gotten so good at scanning for them police. And the same way with them Crown Vics. Well up in the 90s, you could tell when there was a Crown Vic running up on your six. There was a period of time where they started selling off all those Crown Vics. And my buddy Nick used to have a joke. Said I'm tired of, man, I can't remember how the bit went. It don't matter. I just tell you, I threw a lot of joints out because somebody driving a used Crown Vic that I thought was a cop car. But you could tell things apart back then. All the automotive manufacturers had their own style. They had their own designers. They had their own style. They had their own look. They had their own identity. They all had a spot. They knew where they were. We've talked about that. Mercury, right? You had Ford, which is the Everyman. That's the Everyman brand. Then Mercury was a little bit of personal luxury, but not completely. Still a little performance. It's a little step up. It's for a man that made his bones. Wanted something just a little nicer. Then you had Lincoln. Lincoln was your diamond gem, right? Lincoln was your diamond gem model. That's when you had a few bucks in your pocket. You needed to let everybody know. You know what I mean? You don't necessarily need them to know everything about you, but you need them to know you got more money than they do. That's Jerry Lee Lewis tooling around in 1961 Lincoln Continental, running around Memphis raising hell, possibly killing a wife or two, whatever. Cadillac, same way. GM had a lot of little intermediate brands, right? GM has Buick was some luxury shit. Wasn't quite Cadillac, but it was some luxury shit. But all of the Buicks had their own styling. So I've often thought that the most overlooked era of hot rods or the Buicks, not era, but brand of hot rod. The most overlooked in the hot rod scene is the Buick. The Buick Skylark was a beautiful car throughout its evolution. Just gorgeous machine. They made another car in 1960. I can't remember what it is, but it has one of the coolest looking canopy designs I've ever seen on a car. Almost looks like a glass bubble driving around. Really interesting. Buick had some of the most interesting designs out there. That's the stuff I love. When cars had, you could just tell, I know what that is. That's this. That's this. Not just, oh, what's this egg-shaped thing? What brand is stamped on it somewhere? I don't think 20 years from now some kid's going to restore his mom's 2012 Lexus egg SUV. I just don't think it's going to happen. They might do some engine swaps on them and stuff and run them, but I don't think anybody's going to be building those cars to make them look beautiful again. But it was throughout that time period of identity and freedom that cars represented is where I think most of us fell in love with automobiles. Because like I said, you might not be able to afford the new one, but you go get you one that's about 5 or 10 years old, put a little money in it, and you had a little something. Same thing I'm doing at Avalanche. That Avalanche is older. I wanted something a little older. I wanted a specific platform that I was happy with, this platform I liked. And I put a little money in it. I had myself a good running little pickup. That was the model. That's what we did throughout that entire time period. That's what your dad did. That's what your uncles did. That's what you did. That's what hopefully your kid got a chance to do. My kids didn't because they're young. My kid don't have no interest in cars, driving, any of that mess. Right? I wish I'd been that way when I was that age. Would have saved me a lot of heartache, I think. That kid just don't care about nothing. Don't want to. When I was 15 years old, I was chomping at the bit to get behind the wheel of a vehicle. Kid don't want nothing to do with it. Boy, I wish I'd been that way. Then we move in to what I think is the third stage of automobile evolution, which is one we're in now. And I feel like it kind of started in the early 2000s. This is it's vehicles as assets, investment, abstraction. This is the quiet heartbreak of the evolution of the automobile. They didn't stop being good, regardless of what people have to say about that. If you look at the numbers and you look at the value and you look at, there's still a lot of good cars being made. Toyota still makes a lot of fine vehicles. There's still a lot of fine vehicles being made that are good, that last. It's much easier to get 200,000 or 300,000 miles out of a car now than it was in the 80s. 300,000 miles on a car in the 80s meant you re-ring it at least twice. It's easier to do that now. Fuel injection, modern fuels, modern lubricants, more efficient engines. But it's still the quiet heartbreak. Cars didn't stop being good, but they stopped being personal. The sense of identity that came with vehicles is starting to be muted. Leasing started replacing ownership. Financing replaced saving up for a car. Software started replacing mechanics. To be a good tech now, you have to have a pretty intricate knowledge of how the software in these vehicles works. You have to, I'm not saying you have to be a computer programmer, but you have to understand how the software works, how to test the software, how to diagnose the software, how to figure out if it's a software issue or an electrical issue is much more important now than it was in 1985. Cars, of course, you know, this is where the screens start coming into play. And this is also where automotive manufacturers start practicing scarcity instead of abundance. You know, it used to be they made up-teen models of a car and they sold it out to the dealerships. And then if those cars didn't get sold, well, they sold next year cheaper. But now they'll put a new car out and they'll only make so many of them. And they'll see how they sell. And then they'll determine if they're going to manufacture any more of that or if they're going to keep that line. And we talk about cars differently now. Nobody talks about, oh, I just buying this car because I just want this car. It's so rare that you hear that anymore. Mostly the young people still. But like a lot of the boomer age people bought all these badass cars in the 70s and 80s and they fixed them up and they held on to them. And somewhere along the line, it stopped being a car. It started being this thing in a garage that was an investment. They started talking about the vehicles as resale value, market value, collector grade, low miles. These all became more important than the car itself. As a result, what you're now seeing is because those cars have dropped in valuation, they're not sought after. I mean, they're sought after, but not like they were. There was a period of time where if you had a 1949 Ford Coupe with a decent restoration on it, you had money in the bank. That's a $20,000 car now. There are thousands of those cars across the United States with 60 to 80 grand spent on restoration that are not pulling that money. They're not getting that money back out of them because those cars have passed the mark of their peak valuation. And all these guys that held on to them are selling. Watch John Clay Wolf, man. He goes out there and will buy a lot of these cars from these guys that have collected these cars all their life, and they're in their late 60s and their mid 70s now, and they know they're never going to drive all them cars. They know they don't even drive them now. They hoarded and collected them, and now they're getting a third of their value on resale. That's, to me, is perhaps the most disappointing, one of the most disappointing factors of that. You know, when I was telling y'all last week about that buddy of mine selling that pickup truck so cheap to that kid, it does tickle me. Tickles me that kid got that truck that cheap, because a kid ought to be able to get a truck that cheap now. A kid ought to be able to buy a truck for something they can afford to spend on and put a little effort and blood, sweat, and tears into and have something they like when they're done. They ought to be able to, but it's damned hard for them to do it now. These kids, what, you know, you go out and buy a 10-year-old car now, you're getting a Cadillac SRX. Who the hell wants that? You know, I mean, I did when I bought it, but you know what I'm saying? Like, that's not the same thing. It's not like the options that we had. I feel for them. I feel for the younger generation when it comes to that. They're missing a chunk of that. The romance in the early 2000s, the romance between the American people and automobiles changed. It died a little bit. Cars became investments. Cars became assets. They were no longer symbols of identity. At some point, cars stopped being a tool that you used up and started being a thing you protected because you thought you were going to get something out of it later on when you got ready to replace it. It's a huge shift. And that's when the colors disappeared. Yeah, and the reason for that is resale. That's the biggest reason. There are far less colors available than there used to be. It's because of resale. People mostly buy black, white, and gray cars because black, white, and gray cars sell. Black, white, and gray cars resell. Plum cars, sometimes a little harder to move. Black, white, and gray resells. It's why everybody's house is 9 shades of gray now on the inside. It becomes that, well, I need to paint my house good color. Houses have done the same, homes have done the same thing. Remember in the 70s and 80s and the 90s, growing up, all our parents, their homes were decorated with photos and things from their childhood and things that mattered to them. And, you know, that deer Dad got back in 1984 was up on the wall. And that fish he caught out at Lake Travis that time, that was up on the wall, you know. People's homes were an extension of themselves, extension of their identity and their personality. Now, homes have lost that on the large. I know there's still exceptions to the rule, but it's the same way. People go in, they buy a house, and as they're going to remodel it, and the first thing they do is they paint it 8 shades of gray or 8 shades of beige cowardice in hopes that when they get ready to move or whatever they're doing, they can resell it and make a little money on it. You know, back when I was younger, selling a car used to mean you were done. Like I said, you were done with a chapter, and it still does to me. But now it feels more like you're stepping out of a market, and that feels gross to me. You're not sad about the metal. You're sad about the version of yourself that needed the car, the promise it represented, the idea that cars once met us halfway. But now you're just selling an investment. The thing that you tied this much money in, and let's hope it pays out to this. I'm not being anti-car. I'm just, and I'm not trying to be a Luddite. I'm just saying there was a period, and we've passed that period. And the period we're in now it's not as warm a period for automobile. I don't necessarily miss all those cars from that era, but I missed the era where owning one still felt like you were becoming something. Anyways, whenever I get my op-ed finished writing, I'll let you guys read it. See what y'all think. It's more about pickup trucks and how they evolved alongside masculinity, like I said. But let's talk a little bit about Hoyt Axton, man. Holy shit. I get so excited when I discover something new that I didn't know or I didn't remember. And a lot of times, a lot of that these days is from TikTok, because my TikTok algorithm, I have manufactured it very carefully. It's a lot of old music, old movies, science stuff that interests me. Very little car stuff. Very little car stuff on my TikTok. I don't particularly like the automotive lane of TikTok because it seems to be mostly bullshit and people flexing money. But what I kind of I lean towards YouTube for my car stuff. I like guys like Vice Grips Garage and Pole Barn Garage stuff. Guys doing real shit like that. I like Cletus McFarland. That's a lot of money, but I like what he does. Those are guys I lean more towards. So most of my car needs and stuff like that, and video game stuff that I'm into and I'm researching, that's all YouTube for me. TikTok's old music, old movies, stuff I didn't know. And I see this clip. I'm scrolling through TikTok. I think it was Tuesday night, and I stumble across this clip. It's a song I love. It's called "Never Been to Spain." It was a big Three Dog Night hit. But it ain't Three Dog Night playing the song. It's this kind of husky fella. And he looks familiar to me. And he's singing the shit out of "Never Been to Spain." I mean, honestly, it's a little better than Three Dog Night, which feels like sacrilege to say in the wrecking yard. But I'm just going to be straight with you. The old boy's killing it. I'm like, who's this guy? And I'm looking at him, I'm like, man, where I know this dude from? I know this guy from somewhere. So I look down, I read his name, Hoyt Axton, and I immediately, off to Google. Let's go. Who in the hell is Hoyt Axton? Pops up all he's done a lot of acting. and a lot of songwriting, a lot of music. Who's this guy? How have I never heard of him? And then boom, right there, Gremlins, 1984, I think. He's the dad in Gremlins. Gremlins is one of my favorite movies from when I was a kid. I watched Gremlins over and over and over again. Love that movie. He's the dad in Gremlins, the amateur inventor, the guy trying to sell his little smokeless ashtrays and bullshit. And he was lovable and warm. And then I used to watch a lot of Bonanza with my papa. And sure enough, boom, Bonanza. He's singing on Bonanza like, I know this guy. Oh my God, I know this guy. It's like when you realize Shel Silverstein was on, not Shel Silverstein, Ben Calder. What's his name? One-eyed, one-horned, flying purple people eater. He wrote under a little pen name, something, Shelby, something like that. There he is on Bonanza. Hoyt Axton on Bonanza. I go off in a deep dive on this dude. Find out he's everywhere. Songs you've heard your whole life, a voice you recognize immediately, lyrics that sound older than the recording. Like some people aren't big stars. They're threads. They're threads in the tapestry that creates popular culture in our country. And this dude is one of these threads, right? He's not the whole picture. He's not the fabric, but he's one of these threads. His mother co-wrote Heartbreak Hotel. Mae Axton co-wrote Heartbreak Hotel for the king. Regardless of your thoughts on Elvis, he's a king. All right? Put that out there. He's a king. Wasn't a great songwriter, great song buyer. He's a king. Heartbreak Hotel. Hoyt Axton's mother. That's not random trivia. That's destiny paperwork. This guy was destined to become a part of Americana. You can't come from that kind of lineage and not have a little talent, a little something. That's not coincidence. That's a family being assigned a job in the country. He didn't stumble into Americana. He reported for duty. And he was an amazing character actor. He's in WKRP Cincinnati. He pops up in all these little places just enough that your whole life you've seen him somewhere. Not big main character energy, not leading man. Just this fingerprint here and a fingerprint there and a fingerprint there. He's never the loudest. He's always believable. Warm, human, little worn. He feels like a man who's seen some things every time you see him on screen. He's I tell you the other one I remember him big time for. I didn't realize it until I started looking him up. He's Mr. Jim. He's the trainer from Black Stallion. That was a movie I watched with my mom a lot. My mom loved Black Stallion, and I liked horse movies when I was a kid. That's because I didn't know anything about horses yet. I didn't realize horses were complete, utter assholes and hate us. But I used to watch a lot of horse movies. And there was the Black Stallion. My mom also loved the 8 Seconds movie with Lane Frost. We used to watch that one a lot, which is not really a horse movie. It's more of a bull rider movie, but it's rodeo shit. It's adjacent. And there was a set of movies that I loved when I was young that me and my Papa Clark used to watch. And they were called The Man from Snowy River. And they were about Australian cowboys. And by God, they were some cool. There's still some. The Man from Snowy River, I would put up against most cowboy movies and say, let's watch this. You tell me this ain't a great cowboy movie. Man from Snowy River is fantastic. You got, is it Jack Lemmon? No, I can't remember who plays the uncle. Kirk Douglas. You got Kirk Douglas playing twins, 2 brothers. Brian Dennehy I love Brian Dennehy. He gets involved. Brian Dennehy makes a good, right. I don't remember the boy's name that plays the Man from Snowy River, but he's fantastic too. Go if you hadn't watched a good old cowboy movie in a while, and you want to see some Australian cowboys, go watch The Man from Snowy River. It's got some of the best horse scenes. I put it right up there with, as far as horse scenes and the horse riding scenes, I'll put it up next to Young Guns. Put it up next to Young Gun series. I'm excited. Did y'all know they're making a third one? I'm psyched about that. Emilio Estevez is directing it. I'm really looking forward to how that turns out. But Hoyt Axton's there. He's not in those movies, but you know what I mean? He's just one of these guys that pops up. He's around. He's in Black Stallion. He's in Gremlins. He's in WKRP Cincinnati. He's on Bonanza. He's just popping around American culture, letting you know I'm here. And it's not just about liking him. You trusted him. He felt like a man that you could sit next to in a bus station and not be impressed, and that's why he mattered. Americana isn't a genre. It's the background radiation of growing up in the United States. And Hoyt Axton shows up in that as music, movie, songwriting, voice, spirit. He wasn't trying to be iconic. He just was trying to be useful. And I think that's the key. And some of the threads in the tapestry that he added that are songbook, he wrote Joy to the World. He named his record label Jeremiah after Jeremiah was a bullfrog. He wrote Joy to the World. Can I tell you, I mean, it was a mass culture sing-along. Joy to the World is me in the garage with my dad. Always. Three Dog Night is me in the garage with my dad. I used to, when I first started stand-up, I had like 3 or 4 jokes about Three Dog Night. They didn't play because nobody remembered who they were, but I thought they were funny. Never Been to Spain. Never Been to Spain is one of my favorite songs lifelong. That's one of those songs that, well, I never been to England, but he made Elvis sing that. He made Elvis sing I Really Like the Beatles, which Elvis did not. Elvis recorded that song, Three Dog Night. Of course, Three Dog Night to me is probably, the main one, but all his songs were kind of written as an outsider perspective disguised as fun about displacement. He wrote the No No song. It's funny, deceptively biographical. So I can't say that word. No No song's funny because it's a song about refusal by a man who struggled to refuse things. Hoyt had some problems with some cocaines, right? He struggled a little bit with addiction and sobriety. Greenback Dollar, it's pure folk DNA, right? Poverty, dignity, humor, all in one song. The Pusher, crucial for the addiction conversation, separates the dealer from the drug, blame versus weakness. Big themes in that song. It's written by somebody who understands both words. His recordings feel earthy, worn, friendly. A little tired in an honest way. I'm just amazed at the amount of music this man wrote, while also doing this acting and popping up. I had no idea that the dad from Gremlins was responsible for all this magic that is a part of the very fabric of the world I grew up in. What a wonderful way to have an entertainment career. And Hoyt struggled, like I said, with cocaine, alcohol, the wear and tear of being everywhere and nowhere at once, right? He had demons, but he didn't hide from his addiction. He was standing in it, trying to stay useful, and he fought it head first. He didn't disappear. He didn't stop working. He didn't burn the whole house down publicly. He kept showing up as a functional human even when it was hard. And then later on, he gets sober, and he talks about that openly. He helps others. But my favorite thing about him is when you look at the things he had later to say about that, he didn't come off as preachy. He didn't act like his sobriety made him holy. Look, let me tell you, there is. I often joke that one of the hardest people to be friends with is an alcoholic, and the second hardest to be is an AA person who used to be an alcoholic or recovered alcoholic, because some of them people they just decide whatever their problem is everybody else's problem, and they start projecting that, and it gets to be a lot. But this dude Hoyt didn't wear recovery like a medal. He wore it like work boots, like it was just something he had to do. That's kind of the way my buddy Sam Miller is about. Sam Miller, really funny comic, and I appreciate his very distinct, this is the life I lived, this is what I did, and this is what I do now. Sam Miller has a great recovery outlook. Sam Miller is a guy I suspect will be recovered for the rest of his life because he's very honest about it. Him and Hoyt, they're the kind of men that they survive addiction not because they're special, but because they believe they're still needed. And that's something that speaks to us as men. As men, we want to be needed. And when you come through something like that, and you fight a battle like that, and then you can wear that like armor to say, no, I'm not. It's not because I think I'm so important, but it's because I think I'm still needed. Hoyt felt needed by music, by people, by the work. It's the same thing I was saying about the cars a while ago. Cars were necessary because they were tools, and cars were part of our identity. It's that same need. Cars, tools, meaning, markets. Hoyt, talent, usefulness, survival. These themes keep showing up. Some people don't exist to be celebrated. They exist to hold things together while the rest of us try to figure it out. That's Hoyt Axton. So if you're not familiar with Mr. Hoyt, do yourself a favor this evening. You get done watching the podcast. If you're a drinking man, pour yourself a little drink. If you're not a drinking man, pour yourself a little water, coffee, whatever it is you do, some tea. Find yourself a little quiet spot somewhere. Put your headphones in. Go to whatever your music app is. Put in Hoyt Axton. And give yourself a trip, a little escape. Learn a little something about a man that just sat here and helped shape the music of Americana. It's amazing to me. So, some folks in entertainment are not meant to be. You have your flashes in the pans. You have your people who are big stars right off the bat. But some folks aren't meant to be discovered early. They're meant to be there when you finally have the ears for them. And I think at 48 years old, all of a sudden, I had the ears for Hoyt Axton. I didn't find him late. I found him right on time for me. But I hope some of you will go and check out little Hoyt Axton. Just look at him, do a little reading on the guy. Wildly interesting. You know, he's passed on now. But he wasn't optional. He was always part of the tapestry. And what more could you hope for? I mean, I guess I kind of looked at it like, this is the career I want. I don't need to be the big star. I'm not trying to be a leading man, right? But I would like to do some character acting. I'd like to play some dads. I'd like to play a couple of different versions of dad. Hopefully some papaws. I'd like to play some papaws. These are the characters I want to play. I want to play them honestly and openly as I know them to be. That's good work right there. That's a good. Hoyt Axton left this world with a great legacy. I wrote he created these songs that, granted, mostly other people made them famous. You know, Kingston Trio, Greenback Dollar was a big hit for them. Three Dog Night, Joy to the World, Never Been to Spain. Elvis had a pretty big hit with Never Been to Spain. Elvis had a couple songs that Hoyt wrote that were big hits for him. That's kind of legacy, like as far as entertainment goes, that would feel meaningful to me. It's like, you know, one day after I'm gone, maybe some young people watch the Wrecking Yard still. Glean something from it, something helpful. or at least learn about an age they missed out on. Maybe by the time we're all in flying cars, they'll watch Truck Astrology and try to imagine which one of those characters I'm talking about was their papaw or whatever. That's kind of shit I'd like. That's Hoyt Axton's legacy is a legacy worth wanting. It's a tremendous human being. All right, let's wrap that up for now. You know what time it is. It is time for us to return to Duwali Bottoms, Texas. We got a humdinger of an episode today. The Ford F3 looms silent in the dark next to a makeshift carport fashioned from leftover drill pipe and corrugated steel. It hadn't moved in many years, its own deteriorating shell and frame slowly mirroring its owner's passage through time. Oxidation and mice had found a permanent home within the bones and interior of the retired workhorse, weary from an incalculable number of trips hauling men and their cutting tools in and out of the pine bottoms that spread lush and damp throughout East Texas in those days. The home was modest. It had been ordered as a kit from Sears in the early 50s and built on site by the mill workers for the foreman to live in. Danny had made a deal with Mr. Simmons for the house and land a few years before he passed, and the Simmons kids had sold off every asset the old man had worked his whole life for. Such is the nature of these things. Children who do not sweat and bleed to build empires often only see the value in the printing of numbers on checks. A sycamore, as ancient and gnarled as it was tall, did little to block the moonlight. Its leaves scattered across the property as if giving notice of the impending winter. The gravel crunched and popped beneath the tires of Danny's Ford as he pulled past the tree, slowly coming to a stop in front of the carport. One final hiss from the engine as he turned the key off and stepped out of the pickup. He took a drag from his cigarette and leaned against the bed, staring up into the branches of the old century, his face haloed in the smoke of a slow exhale. The embers of his cigarette scattered and bounced when he flicked it carelessly across the carport before stepping up the concrete stairs into the narrow kitchen. He filled his coffee pot before setting it on the steady blue flame from the burner. There was a feeling that the night would be long and he'd need the caffeine to stay sharp. He pulled a bottle of Old Forester from the cabinet above. He'd need the whiskey to keep the anger boiling inside at bay for the work ahead. No one had ever accused Johnny Black of being too intelligent or clever. Him and his ilk come from Laird Hill, a small community a few miles outside of Kilgore. His father was a well-liked man of God from a long line of Pentecostals and shouting Methodists. Together with his wife, they stewarded a small country church, and though the couple had guided many of their congregation through difficult times, their own two sons had been nothing short of a menace to Russ County. Johnny was the muscle, but his younger brother Timmy made up for his slight build with a sense of cruelty that gave even his older sibling pause. "I can't believe you let that old prick rub his gun on your face." The sharp words distracted Johnny from the cigarette he was trying to light. He glared at Timmy over the roof of his battered baby blue El Camino. "I ain't letting nobody do shit. I ain't done with him." Timmy grinned with all the malice his father had spent his life trying to quell. He opened the passenger door. "There's enough money in that envelope to set us up in New Orleans, make some real cash, and teaching that old fool a lesson is just a bonus." Johnny sat down in the driver's seat. "We ought to wait till tomorrow night so he ain't expecting us." Timmy cut him off mid-sentence. "Boy, he really scared your ass, didn't he? Who gives a shit if he expects us? Won't do him no good anyways. I ain't scared of shit, Timmy. You keep talking that mess and it's going to be me and you go at it. Give me a bump." Timmy visibly shrank back from his older brother's retching hand, knowing he'd pushed a little too far. He produced the twisted cellophane package he'd got from the bikers earlier. Its contents resembled chunks of dirty sugar mixed with drywall dust. Johnny snatched the bag and pummeled its contents against the steering wheel with his lighter before dipping his key in. He brought it up quick, head snapping back from the familiar burn. Timmy was down in his own line off his hand when Johnny fired up the El Camino and whipped it down the rough-shod road. He hollered an obscenity out of the window as Johnny floored it, turning on the highway, the 305 beneath the hood sounding like it was having an asthma attack under its own inefficient labor. Danny laid a 20-gauge double-barrel shotgun across his lap, breaking open the action and shoving a pair of buckshot rounds in before snapping it closed. The barrel was pitted with surface rust, the Savage Arms logo barely visible. He wasn't much of a sporting man aside from fishing, but the gun had belonged to his own grandfather, who had taught him how to shoot with it. He legged it carefully across the kitchen table and stared out the window at the old sycamore and down the road, his eyes searching for any glimmer of light. He poured a couple fingers of the bourbon into his coffee before taking a sip of the hot liquid, the heat reddening his face, the bourbon loosening his hands. The revolver, heavy still in his left pocket, pressed against his midsection as he leaned back in the chair, his mind returning to a happier memory of teaching Tony how to shoot the old shotgun down in the creek bottoms. The boy couldn't have been more than 13, bird-chested and light as a feather. It was just a 20 gauge, but knocked the kid to the ground damn near every time he fired it. Little booger would just hop up, dust himself off, and reload for another round every time, though. Kid had heart. Not a lick of brains, but all the heart and grit in the world. The nostalgic moment was interrupted when he saw the El Camino headlights turn onto the old mill road. They were moving slow, the noise of the engine barely audible yet. When the car pulled off behind a stand of box elder and the lights cut, he was certain they were coming to see him. If they were coming to sell information, they'd have just parked in the driveway, though. The two brothers sat in the dark watching the old man drink coffee in the kitchen window. Tommy opened the glove compartment and handed one of the pistols to Johnny, the 2-inch barrel of the Rossi catching the sliver of light shining through the clouds for just a second. Johnny wrapped his hand around the checkered grip and slowly stepped out of the car, his brother grabbing the remaining gun, a Taurus revolver they'd stolen from a junk shop owner they'd robbed in Dangerfield before getting out and creeping to the tree line. You go in the front door, stay the tree line till you get past that sycamore in the driveway. I'll ease out around that old farm truck and come in the kitchen door. If he runs for the living room, you'll be right there on him, Timmy whispered. How am I going to know if I can't see you? How am I going to know when to go? Johnny wasn't good with conceptual planning. Just wait till you hear me go in. I'll holler something at him to catch his old ass off guard. Timmy's impatient, evident. Johnny just silently nodded, still unsure of the plan, but not wanting to irritate his sibling any further. Danny watched the bigger one creeping along the tree line on the other side of the road. He recognized him as the big lug he had stood down at the beer joint earlier. His peripheral had caught the smaller one moving towards his old pulpwood truck. Surmising correctly, he was planning on coming through the kitchen door. He continued to sip his coffee, knowing the bigger one could see him. He waited patiently for him to cross behind the sycamore towards the front door out of sight. The second the shadow crossed, Danny grabbed the shotgun and stepped into the hallway of the kitchen to the bedrooms and stood ready against the wall, breathing slowly, the remaining fingers of his mangled right hand curled around the forend, his left around the stock, finger across both triggers. Seconds felt like minutes before he heard the kitchen doorknob slowly turn, before the door flew open with a war cry from the intruder, followed immediately by the sound of Johnny's size 13 boot kicking the front door nearly off its hinges, door casing splintering into shards. A few footsteps into the kitchen and a soft "what the was all the smaller man got out before Danny fired both barrels from the dark hallway a few feet away. Johnny watched in confusion as his kid brother was lifted off his feet and slammed into the kitchen cabinets from the force of the blast. He ran forward, ears ringing, a scream he wasn't even sure was his, blasting through the kitchen. Danny had immediately dropped the shotgun and pulled the Ruger from his pocket as the bigger man ran towards the carnage. He stepped out with the revolver pointed at Johnny, who was having a hard time processing what had happened. "You killed my brother! You killed my brother! You killed him!" "You raise that pistol and you'll be next." Danny eyed the pistol down at Johnny's side now. Johnny's attention turned to Danny, the adrenaline and crank still running his decision process. "You're dead!" He went to lift his gun right as the Ruger bucked and a round tore into his pelvis. Bam! The Ruger bucked again, this round ripping through his lower abdomen, dropping him to his knees, the pistol in his hand clattering to the linoleum. Danny stepped forward and kicked him backwards before kicking his discarded gun towards the other wall. Johnny's breath was short, his stomach on fire like Satan himself had pissed in his wounds. Danny pointed the Ruger at his face. "Tell me who killed Tony." "I don't know, man. I don't know," Johnny gargled out. I don't know. You killed my brother." He was openly bawling at this point, bloody spittle forming at the corners of his mouth. "Stop your sniveling. Y'all didn't kick in my door to say hello." Danny's rage was palpable, filling the room, even though his tone was calm. "You ain't got long, boy. Do something right before you meet your maker. Tell me who the hell killed my nephew." Johnny's eyes were unfocused. The life was leaving him. "Red and gold, man. Everybody knows it's red and gold." He coughed up some of the blood choking him before going still, his last few rattling breaths echoing in the quiet kitchen. Danny sat down in the chair, laid the revolver on the table, the acrid bite of the powder stinging his nose. He wiped some of the younger brother's blood from his cheek with his hand and began to weep. Not for his actions, not for the two brothers laying motionless on his kitchen floor, but for a blonde, bird-chested 13-year-old with a dirty face that he couldn't save. Tune in next week for more from Duwali Bottoms, Texas. Episode 5 in the can. Told you it was a good one. Got things happening now. All right, let's do some testimonials. There we go. Our buddy, I can't read. At Bench Press Ben. What a name. "Hey, JW, I really love the new format. Your stories are awesome, and it's something different to look forward to with each new episode. In a way, it reminds me of Paul Harvey and the rest of the story episodes from my childhood. I think it's the level of engagement that your stories demand that reminds me of that. Oh, and one last thing, a Ford 300 doesn't have a timing chain." Boy, everybody showed up to tell me that. Y'all are 100% right. That was a screw up on my part. So when I originally started writing the story, I was going to have Danny driving a 1987 Dodge with a 318 in it. Was originally how the story was going to go. But then I decided last week when I was working on stuff, I decided I wanted Carl Jr. driving a Dodge Diplomat as his police car, because there used to be a lot of those when I was young. They were a good, cheap police car. And I was like, well, that's too many Dodges. And Danny feels more like a Ford man, right? Because he's got that old Ford F3. So, them guys they stuck with one brand for a while. That was that generation that did that. And so Danny felt more like a Ford man to me. So I started rewriting the beginning of that, and that was just my screw up. Y'all are absolutely right. Ford 300 does not have a timing chain. Ford 302 does not have a tensioner on its timing chain, but a 318 does, and that's what I was thinking about, and I screwed up. Good catch. Try not to make mistakes like that, but when you're writing something every week for people, it's It's easy to get mired up into the story and forget about some of the details. So that's my bad. I will try to do better in the future. Thank you for the call out, brother. That, our old buddy, Chuck Packwood. What you said really hit home. I remember when we were struggling and I would get jealous of someone driving a newer truck than me. Later, when our business took off and I was driving a new truck, I found out I had cancer. Suddenly, the material stuff didn't hold any meaning to me. Now that I'm better, I still drive an older truck. It really taught me what matters in life. But it took me a while to learn that. I'll tell you, there was a specific night. I had my old 2000 GMC Z71. Rachel had a 2007 Yukon at the time. They were both in need of repairs, both high miles at the time. And we were struggling. I was doing everything. I was doing foundation repair and, of course, paying off Paul Russian. And we were killing ourselves to get by, you know. Every dime we had extra was going back into the business, tools, equipment. We weren't making money on every job. And there's one night we ordered a pizza, and the pizza delivery guy showed up in a 2012, maybe it's 2014, Chevrolet 2500 HD Duramax, which was the kind of truck I was dreaming about at that time, but I couldn't afford. I wanted to have one of those for pulling trailer stuff. My little Z71 was struggling, and I was doing concrete jobs. I need to pull heavier trailers. And here my pizza guy shows up to drop off my pizza, and he's driving the truck that I need to do my job. And it's nicer than mine. It's newer than mine, and it got under my skin. I went outside that night, and I was leaning over the bed of my truck smoking a cigarette, and I just kept thinking, like, where'd you go wrong? Why has the pizza man got a nicer vehicle than you, you know? And it's the wrong way to look at it. And I know that now, but at the time, I'm telling you, I was mired up in it. I could not look at it any other way. It made me feel like a failure. It made me feel like I'd let my wife down because she wasn't driving a newer vehicle. It made me feel a lot of things. I look at it all differently now, but I'm just telling you who I was at that time. I get what you're saying, Chuck. I'm also really glad to hear you beat the shit out of cancer. I hope that old truck you're driving gives you thousands and thousands of more miles of smiles. At David Beckert, our old buddy David. JW, you need to know in this world you have to have an opinion. You have to be on one side or the other. We cannot wait for all the facts. That is not the world now. Love you, man. I think David's joking. I hope David's joking. We talk about this stuff all the time. But I think David's screwing with me. I hope he is. Don't get it twisted. I got plenty of opinions. I have opinions about everything. I have all manner of opinions about politics and politicking. I do a lot of reading about it. I used to be really wrapped up in that stuff. I still keep an ear to the ground. I got opinions, but I just don't believe that I need to be another voice, another part of the noise about those things. There are plenty of people making noise about those things that I don't think should be. I don't think everybody needs to voice their opinion about that stuff. I miss the days when I was growing up and the old men didn't really argue about politics too much. They might have something to say about this guy's a deadbeat or whatever, but that was the end of it, and they moved on. And they talked about things that matter: life, family, cars, hunting, fishing, whatever. I miss that. I miss when our politicians had class and tact. I mean, they were still screwing us, but at least they sounded better doing it. Yeah, I got plenty of opinions, but I share those opinions with my close, trusted confidants, my wife, my closest friends. We talk about those things, and we don't all agree. Sometimes we bicker a little bit about those things, and what we believe. I'm probably more of a centrist than any of my friends. I like, I always want to call myself, I think if you had to like tie me to something, right? Like a political party, it's libertarian. But I hate to call myself a libertarian because I don't believe we're real. I don't believe we actually exist. I think every libertarian is either a dope-smoking Republican or a gun-toting Democrat. And I'll let y'all decide what the hell you think I am. But that's what I really think. All right, let's get out of here. Oh, no, I got one more thing. Oh, I got some mail. Yeah. G. Brenner in Nevada. Let's see what Mr. Brenner sent us. This is a interesting envelope here. Thick, kind of old school looking. Ready Post is what it says on it. Kind of brown. I don't know. I like getting things in brown cardboard. It's kind of a nostalgia thing. Oh, and it's a handwritten letter. JW. A while back, the algorithm may have chosen humanity over profit. When your videos began popping up in my feed, I enjoyed them, and when I learned that you had a podcast, I filed it in my mind as something to get to earlier this year. I popped on a random episode and listened between service calls. Sorry, it's not that his handwriting's bad, my eyes just suck. Then I went back to the beginning and listened to the series in order. I caught up last week. I caught you at a good time about 4 months ago, about 4 months into recovery from a nasty alcohol addiction. One that left me with withdrawal symptoms that led to a seizure and a hospital stay. Things could have been worse, but the wreckage from a 4-year cheap vodka-fueled bender were far from insignificant. Damaged relationships, broken trust, and lots of questions of both the immediate and existential type. Boy, you're preaching my language there. My soul currently resembles a house after a storm, a bare exposed frame on an overgrown lot whose rebuild plans are uncertain. But it is slowly being rebuilt. The form it will take is yet unknown at the moment. Your sharing of your tales with a perfect mix of seriousness and irreverence, warts and all, make you and the podcast very relatable, and you spin a heck of a yarn. Thank you for what you have taken the time to create. Glenn Brenner. On a lighter note, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't at least a little mad at that knucklehead that ruined that cougar that you had designs on. But that payback, oh, that wormy little bastard. I still get mad when I think about that cougar. The episode reminded me of a picture I took on a patio on a photo walk. I'm a photography geek. Enjoy it. Use it for dart practice. Give it to the cat. Whatever. Just know that it is a tiny token of my appreciation that your encouraging words help more than you may ever know. Thank you for that, Glenn. Oh, there's just something about a handwritten note. That's really wonderful. Gotten a few from you guys over the years, and I don't know why, that just triggers something in me. Somebody sat down and wrote something out. People don't often do that anymore. Oh, this is beautiful. Look at this. Where'd you even see this? What a magical spot. What a magical capture. I'm going to take it out of the plastic so y'all can see it a little better on camera. And I'll put it back in the plastic to the side. I think I may frame this. Have this frame put in my office. I've been sort of figuring out what my office looks like this year. This is fantastic. You listeners that can't see it, it's a beautiful photograph of a late 60s era cougar in a wooded area, but the trees are kind of growing over it like a canopy, and its front end is concealed by underbrush. It looks like there might be a tarp or old floor mat laying on top of it. Maybe a tarp that was pulled back. I don't think the tarp was over it because the leaves on the windshield is no longer clear. It's fogged by time and age. It's all in black and white. It's very stark and contrasting. It's a gorgeous photo. I'll hold it up there in the camera so you guys can get a good look at it. Isn't that cool? Thank you very much for that, Glenn. Thank you. I'm going to find something interesting to do that. It will not be dart practice. And I will not give it to the cat because she will just eat it. Well, I said I was going to put it back in the plastic, but I'm screwing that all up. Well, I got to find out what kind of tape you used on that, because that's the best tape anybody's ever used for anything. All right, well, it's at least covered in plastic now. We'll figure that out later. Thank you so much for the note, Glenn, for the words on this paper. These are the kind of words that keep me going. I've struggled with how this thing has taken shape and what it's become, but the overrunning theme I keep hearing from people is that it's helping. And that's, if I can do something with my creativity and my stories to help others, then what better purpose could you possibly have? It's that Hoyt Axton shit, right? It's that kind of legacy. That's what I'm trying to build. Thank you. I wish you all the success in the world in the rebuilding of your soul. Somebody who's had to do it a few times, I know how a difficult process that can be. All right, let's wrap this thing up, guys. I sometimes get accused of it because of my videos, but I'm no Luddite. I ain't one of these old dudes that just think the world has gone to hell and there's no fixing it. That there's one singularity or event that ruined everything. I love being alive right now. As difficult as things can be to get by for regular folks, bearing witness to great strides in technology and innovation ain't a prison. It's a gift. I'm not against a computer or a screen in my vehicle. I just don't want the whole vehicle to become a touch screen with a set of 20s and run flats. The news is scary as hell. I get it. It keeps me worried more than I like to admit myself. News has always been scary, though. I guarantee some dude sat in his outhouse in 1893 trying to read the New York Times between smashing spiders and thought, well, hell, between the bank failure, the riots, and starvation, the whole thing is going into crapper. The same way my granddad read the paper at the table in the 80s, reading about nuclear annihilation and crack-infested neighborhoods, and he was just sure we was all done for. The exact same way a lot of us sit and scroll news and political videos and stay up half the night worrying about our kids' futures and sometimes decide someone ruined everything and it's all over. It ain't. We just got to keep working on it. Not everything's disposable. Despite how it feels, we can fix this. It's going to take some love, some understanding. We're going to have to stop wearing our ideals like armor and attacking anyone who sees the world differently than us. But I tell you what ain't going to fix it, division and posturing. That ain't ever fixed a damn thing. You can't build nothing worth keeping when everybody's trying to tear it apart at the same time. A house divided don't fall from the outside, it caves in. Hell, I'm pretty sure that's biblical. I'm rooting for you. I tell you that every week because I really believe it can be fixed. And there's room at the table for all of us. I really believe that. That's why I tell you that. Just, if you can, look for a way in your world to spend more time listening and a little less time defending if you can this week. Just try it. I wouldn't steer you wrong. I'm rooting for you. I'm JW, and I love you. Woo, buddy. I'm about ready to get out of this cold, y'all. Oh, I left my light on. Well, I never been to England, but I kind of like the Beatles. I'm about to go jam some Hoyt Axton. That's what I'm going to do while I'm editing. I'm going to go, this is my dance. Y'all ain't never seen my dance. This is my dance I do. That's about the only dance I got. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go listen to some Hoyt Axton, edit this episode, get it up for you guys. Love y'all. I really do. Thank you for sharing your Sunday with me. Thank you for sharing whatever time you share with me. Thank you. Those of you in the chat, thank you for being here every week. I love seeing the familiar names pop up in the chat. I like the sense of camaraderie we've built there. I like the sense of family we've built here in the Wrecking Yard. I got some new merchandise I'm working on. I think you guys are going to like. And there's going to be a test if you want to buy it. Because I made some merchandise I'm really proud of. But it's Wrecking Crew. We're the Wrecking Crew. Right? Don't that sound cool? And it ain't about that movie of Bautista and big Hawaiian guy, whatever his name is. Jason Momoa. Jason Momoa. It's not about them. That movie is hilarious. But I was just thinking about it. I wanted some merch. Amy made me that beautiful Day Oneer shirt. And I like that. But I want something that really, like, for those of you guys that have been through, maybe not necessarily a Day Oneer, but you've listened to the whole series. You've been here for the ride. You've done the ride. You know what the ride's about. It's just going to be, when you go to purchase it, you're going to have to answer some trivia questions. Make sure you're ready to own your Wrecking Crew merchandise. I might just change up the questions every week. You never can tell if I sell more than one shirt. But they're pretty cool. Rachel is working furiously on the design, and we're trying to cook something up really cool for you guys. But I just love Wrecking Crew. Wrecking Crew is cool. Anyways, if you guys are out and about, be in Nacogdoches February 28th at the Lamplight Theater. I'm going to be headlining the Vulcan Gas Company in Austin, Texas, March 6th. Love to see some of my Wrecking Yarders there, some of my Wrecking Crew there. If you're in Houston this week, bounce around Houston, Texas, I'm doing a little pop-up show Friday night. I forgot what, I think it's February 6th. February 6th. And I cannot remember the name of that venue. It's like William Price Distillery or some shit like that. It's over on Wakefield, so actually me and Rachel's old neighborhood, but it's all getting gentrified and they're building bars and crap all up and down there. Anyways, my good buddy David's coming out. We're going to have a good time. And I will be rebuilding a 4L65E transmission for the first time this week. He never attempted that. David's going to attempt to talk me through it, and I'm going to attempt not to ruin my transmission. I think it's going to go fine. David is a hell of a builder. All right. You guys be safety. I'll catch you next week.